first, Rob, obviously we're sticking with the NBA as the playoffs are getting close, right? We're in the play-in right now. But, Rob, what a story about Giannis Antetokounmpo in today's, I was expecting you to say, bless you. Or
Gesundheit.
What does it usually say?
Gesundheit, yeah. Right. Whenever you get that name out there, I mean, it's
right.
not easy.
In the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, he was just very transparent and very open, Rob. And I was floored by this. But Giannis revealed that in 2020, he considered retiring. Now, this was a few months after he had signed what at that point was the largest contract extension in NBA history. It was 5 years, $228 million. And Rob, people should know this was before he won the championship. And so he was being killed. He was being criticized for not being able to win a championship.
Chris, and not to cut you off, but if you remember, oh no, he's Robin. He ain't no Batman. Remember that? That was the narrative about him.
Yep.
Like confirmed.
All
he was
of that.
Confirmed Robin.
No doubt. And they had a Miami team had beaten them in the playoffs, actually beaten them badly, 4-1. Right. And he said he actually went to Bucks management and explained to them that he might retire, and he was willing to walk away. They thought he was, they couldn't believe he's willing to walk away from that money. He said this was the issue, Rob. He said his rapid ascent to stardom. He said he was feeling the weight of his rapid ascent to stardom, coupled with the personal effects that a worldwide pandemic and the social justice issues had on him. Remember that the Bucks were that team, Rob, that didn't play that game. Remember, I think it was Orlando. I can't remember.
They walked out.
Who exactly it was.
They were the team that said they weren't going to play the game.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So he said all of that was eating at him. And then later on, he gave what probably can be taken as a little more insight. He did say, Rob, he talked to Kevin Love, who we know was the first NBA player to come out and talk about his mental health challenges. And, he went to a therapist, and both of those helped him kind of get, through the challenges he was facing. But he also said, Rob, on a podcast with Serge Ibaka back in November, he said, I want to be like Tim Duncan. He said, I don't know that I want to be the face of the league. He said, direct quote, I want to be like Tim Duncan. I want to disappear. You put me in the face of the league, I'm trying to disappear from it. I definitely feel like I'm one of them, but LeBron is. LeBron's still playing. Steph just won a championship. KD's still hooping. Embiid's killing. Jokic back-to-back MVP. Luka Magic. There's a lot of people out there. So, Rob, I feel like this is really an interesting story, and it's one, Rob, of many now. Giannis right here. Zion recently, just a couple days ago, talking about how physically he's fine, mentally he's not ready. He doesn't feel like himself yet. He's be hesitant out there on the court. Ja Morant, Rob, when he talked about, he apologized for having a picture of him with the gun at the nightclub. He said, I got to find a better way to deal with the stress I'm feeling. And if you remember the interview with Jalen Rose, it was, I've been, this is the most peace I've felt since I've been in the league. And that's while he was ascending to superstardom, while he was about to get and getting a contract worth more than $200 million, he didn't really have peace of mind, and he was stressed and wasn't feeling good. Ben Simmons, the mental challenges he's gone through. Just recently, Andre Drummond backed off because he had some mental issues. Markelle Fultz, Rob, remember he had the yips, if you want to call it that. Yeah, for a basketball player. Like, Rob, we are seeing this. That's not to mention DeMar DeRozan and Kevin Love. So what do you make of, just these mental challenges that so many of the players in the NBA are talking about?
I think that they've been around. I think they've been around, Chris, and people maybe acted out or hid stuff because that's the world that we lived in. A lot of people have been through a lot of stuff. Everything's not new.
Right.
I think that's one of the biggest mistakes we make. Everything is not new. People just didn't talk about it, Chris.
Right.
Can we be honest?
Well,
People
look, we talk. Gilbert Arenas has brought it up, and we've mentioned it here and there, Rob. In the 70s, the NBA was full of drug use.
Yes.
Well, that was a way that, and I'm not saying it's the right way, obviously.
But it was a way.
That was a way they were dealing with their mental issues and stress and things
Chris,
like that.
People never talked about their sexuality. Like it just wasn't. People feel like more to and that's where the term being in the closet came from, because people have always been gay. That's not, but now people have more to express themselves. So this is what I'm trying to get at, is like this is just people now actually telling people what's going on. Not, oh, he's always in a down mood, or he's a downer, or, he never smiles, or what's wrong with him. Like that's what people would have said about players who would have held it in and would have just kept playing and didn't want to come off a certain ways, or even injuries or something where people would have said, just played, because if you didn't, Chris, you would have been crucified, right? Like if you didn't play,
you weren't making the money that guys are making now.
Right.
Where you
but you would have been right, and you would have been crucified if you said, "Oh, I can't go," or "I can't." What do you mean you can't go? Like, and I think the mental health thing is not that this is new, is that they're willing to share it with the world and not feel like a stigmatism, like, man, that guy's nuts, or that guy's got this, or so. Dude, that guy got everything in the world, man. He's tall, he's handsome, he's making $200 million. What could be wrong? You know what I mean? Something's wrong with that dude. Because that's what people look at, and they see the exterior. And you notice, Chris, there's an interior, and mental, and how you feel about yourself. It happens a lot. And everybody used to put on a happy facade and go along with it. But we're hurting inside. I just think that we're hearing more about it. People aren't afraid to air their inner self or inner secrets. It's just like the social media aspect of life, Chris. We talk about it all the time. Why did he put that out there? You know what I mean? Like something's going on. Why would you do that? In the old days, you would never expose that stuff about yourself. Right. But now they just feel compelled, like, I don't care. I'm just going to let everybody know what's going on. That's my take.
I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying. There's no doubt. I mean, mental health issues isn't something new. It's not something that didn't exist before. But I also think there are some new developments that have exacerbated the problem. Rob, there's studies that show that social media creates anxiety and even depression and things like that. And you've heard like Zion this week talking about, I can't get away from what people are saying and this and that. Giannis talking about wanting to disappear. I do think that, and I've said this before on this show, Rob, I think it's a great line that a friend told me. Human beings aren't created for excessive praise or criticism. And I think these NBA players, Rob, I think they're the most scrutinized athletes in America. In the baseball, we don't talk about baseball for the most part on the debate shows, whether it's TV or national radio. We talk about it more than most, and we don't talk about it that much. Football is the quarterback. But Rob, a starter, and heck, an all-pro NFL player could walk down the street and a lot of people wouldn't know who he was. They might say
99% wouldn't know it. And that's why
he might be big and does he play football? They wouldn't know who he is.
Even
NBA,
when if you
could
that,
have a rotation guy. And Matt Barnes, people know who Matt Barnes. I know he's retired now, but when he played, you know what I mean? Alex Caruso, people would know who he is. So the studies show that the NBA players are the most recognizable. They're not wearing helmets.
Less of them. There's less of them, and they don't wear a hat. They don't wear a helmet.
The crowd is closer to the game. That's why they have
arenas are smaller.
More commercials and stuff. Right. And so there's a good part to that, in that you get more endorsements and things like that, even if you're not a star. But the bad part is that you're not. I'm not saying not fame, but it's just more people talking about you, criticizing you, watching you when you're going anywhere, and so I think that those are, because we haven't heard this yet. Obviously, some baseball players and some football players deal with this stuff, and there's probably been some you hear here or there, but it seems like, Rob, more of these you hear about in the NBA.
Yeah, that's true.
At least, right? That doesn't mean there's more, but you hear about more.
No, you hear about it more. I agree, and we don't know. And baseball, Chris, I always remember, like, there's so many games, and I mean, maybe they feel stress is different. I don't know. Yeah, why it seems that NBA players are more apt to talk about it than other games and other sports. Football is always that macho thing. Like, there's a lot of, like, there's a stigma in football, Chris. If you're not, you got to be a robot, follow the team, and all that kind of thing. And, what do you mean you can't play? Like what's wrong with you? Are you soft? Are you weak? You remember, who was the quarterback I always bring up for the Bears who was injured? And remember, he's
Jim
came
McMahon
from Denver.
or
No,
Jay
came
Cutler,
from Denver.
Jay
Cutler.
Yeah.
You remember that, Chris?
Right.
He was crucified. Remember, he came out of NFC Championship game. He wound up having surgery, but people from at home, other football players, killed the guy.
Right.
Remember that?
Right.
Killed him.
And it's a fine look. And we've talked about this before too, when these situations really started kind of at first coming to the forefront. But there's a fine line too. Like a Zion situation. He said he's not Zion. He's not mentally ready. You got to respect that and try to, deal with that. But at the same time, you say you're physically ready, and we're paying you hundreds of millions of dollars to play basketball. And so there's even people in real life, I mean, we're all dealing with challenges. And so you have to find out what's really a mental health issue and what is just a kind of an everyday struggle that a lot of people have, and we all have our challenges and struggles and insecurities, and we all, or, for the most part, you work through those. When you go to work, you still go to work, you're going through a divorce. That's how taxing is that. Right. You got kids
God only knows.
You right? I mean, right. And Rob, like, you go through a divorce, you didn't have kids, but, people that got kids, like,
right.
Or just marital issues or baby mama drama or just all types of stuff. And, but people have continued to work through that. And so you just have to figure, it's tough.